All hopes were raised for the Mercedes racing team during the summer break, following their impressive performance at the 2022 Hungarian Grand Prix. However, the German manufacturer's hopes of finally winning a race this season, nor George Russell made the podium for the first time since the 2022 Monaco Grand Prix. Regrettably, it appears that their bad luck isn't going away anytime soon, as they now face a new set of setbacks that might relegate them to the midfield racing team at the upcoming race at the Circuit Zandvoort. Why are the Silver Arrows not favourites to win the Dutch Grand Prix in 2022? What else are they up against? Crash occurred when Hamilton attempted to overtake Alpine's driver Fernando Alonso into the Leclerc right-hander on the opening lap, and the seven-time F1 champion admitted that he nearly seriously injured his back when he landed aggressively. However, while the British driver was fortunate, his W13 was not, and he even admitted to hearing things break in the car before deciding to retire following the fatal crash of the W13. "I could hear something's broken in the gearbox. So yeah, coming down I would have broken so much in the back end. So I was told to stop. But obviously in that moment you're hopeful you can keep going. But yeah, not meant to be," Hamilton said. The gearbox carrier was reported to be cracked and no longer usable, and as such, the Brackley-based team would have had to replace it and take a third set for the race at Netherlands, which apparently won't trigger a penalty. The gearbox, however, appears to not be the only thing that is feared to be broken. And according to a Mercedes spokesman, the power unit's health is definitely a concern, and it has been returned to Brixworth for examination. However, potential damage to the power unit poses rather a bigger concern for the Silver Arrows, as they will face a grid penalty at the 2022 Dutch Grand Prix if they are forced to use a new power unit. So far, Hamilton has taken 3 power units, and a fourth would result in a grid penalty. With 8 races remaining, there are even more concerns about whether Hamilton will make it to the end of the season without further changes, which would result in an additional grid penalty, which would not be favourable to the racing team, especially Lewis Hamilton, who is on track to have his first winless season since joining Formula One. Others were given grid penalties, including Alpine's Esteban Ocon, Ferrari's Charles Leclerc, and Red Bull's Max Verstappen, who all scored points. Verstappen, who eventually won the race, having started 14th on the grid, established the largest advantage any driver has had this season, showcasing his ability as an excellent driver. However, Mercedes' problems this season have not been with their drivers, but with the W13. Since 2014, the Silver Arrows have won 8 consecutive Constructors' Championships in a row. Regrettably, their run is likely to come to an end this season, as the W13 has been a mystery all season, delivering inconsistent results, which Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff admitted when he said, "We have massive swings of performance that we can't really get on top of. Are the tyres something that we fundamentally don't understand and all the rest is good? Or is the aero messing it up? Or the mechanical balance? That is so difficult to cope with these swings. We had a totally subpar performance in qualifying, then in the race, sometimes we go 3 seconds a lap faster. There are big question marks about what is going on. It's not where we should be with the structure and knowledge to understand a racing car, but we don't with this one," Wolff said. To better understand Wolff's concern, consider the Hungarian Grand Prix, where Mercedes took pole position thanks to George Russell, but after the summer break, the German manufacturer was 1.8 seconds off the pace since a 1.3% deficit at Baku. As mentioned earlier, Mercedes' problem is not their driver in terms of its tyre issue, because it wasn't the first time it happened, and as a result, they chose a relatively high wing level because the more downforce the W13 produces, the more energy is expected to be fed into the tyres to warm it. But this setup did not provide a solution to the under-temperature tyres, but rather imposed a high drag level on the car, which ended up limiting the W13's straight-line speed. George Russell, who finished P8 in qualifying, was surprised by the "It's difficult to comprehend how we were on pole in the last race, but 1.8 seconds off today. And we aren't just losing time to Max, we were 6/10 behind the Alpines. When the temperatures are cold, we struggle, and as we also saw in Imola this year, we find it difficult to get the tyres working." During Trackside Engineering Director Andrew Shovlin explained the Silver Arrow's current issue, stating that it is a recurring issue that has yet to be resolved and will undoubtedly be a problem at the Dutch Grand Prix. "The car isn't yet performing well enough over a range of tracks, so it's clear we need to widen the working window. We were also poor on the single lap, which is another area we have to focus on. With a bit more track temperature today, the warm-up was much better, but it's been a recurrent issue over a range of conditions and circuits, Chauvelin said. The car has been really difficult to get into a good working window here. We're having to make a lot of compromises in how we're running it in terms of balance and stiffnesses. That's part of the problem, but we've also failed to do a decent lap on new tyres all weekend, which is probably a separate issue that we need to investigate and understand, Chauvelin added. Regardless of their current situation, it appears that the Brackley-based team is giving up on their chances this season. Toto Wolff, Mercedes team boss, appears to agree with Hamilton, but acknowledges that because they have yet to understand the 2022 car, they would have to start from scratch because changing the design concept would require a lot of work. Whatever we decide for next year, it needs to be carefully evaluated because clearly our data does not give us the results, doesn't correlate it with the reality. In this moment, to take a decision for next year, changing a concept dramatically, how can you be sure that that is the better direction to go because clearly you will be starting a way back, Wolff said. Whatever the Silver Arrows plan for the 2023 season, the fact remains that there are still 8 races left this season, and if they don't get ahead of the problem the W13 is facing this season before the Dutch Grand Prix, or at least the end of the season, they are bound to turn to the Scuderia racing team of the last decade, whose decline from its dominating era saw them play catch-up to Mercedes. What are your thoughts on Mercedes' chances at the Dutch Grand Prix? Do you believe they will be able to resolve their issues before the end of the season? Or do you believe their season has already ended? Let us know what you think in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, the next video on your screen is worth your time.